Hey guys, welcome to this episode of What's My Problem? And in this one, I want to talk about stress and its relation to anxiety. So, we often think of our experience with anxiety as purely from the aspect of a disorder, from the angle of a disorder. I have an anxiety disorder, and that's the only reason why I'm experiencing anxiety, constantly. But what is often overlooked is how stress not only has symptoms that mirror that of anxiety, because both are very much rooted in your central nervous system. Both are very much, linked in a way. And because the symptoms are so similar, the more stressed you are, the more sort of overworked your nervous system is, the more these symptoms are going to appear and linger around. And I've had on a number of occasions where when I finally managed my stress levels, my anxiety symptoms disappeared. And again, that's because they're both, very much similar when it comes to what you're experiencing. So oftentimes what you might be thinking is anxiety is, maybe by definition anxiety, but it's really the root cause of it is stress. And now I look at anxiety a lot as a symptom. I don't really look at it as from the angle of a disorder, because I've dealt with anxiety for the better part of 10 years and I thought it was generalized anxiety disorder. And every therapist I went to, that's the only conclusion, and nothing ever really seemed to help. What I finally learned for me was the issue was either chronic stress, or the big one was an anxious attachment style. And I covered that in a previous video, and get more into attachment styles in another video. But outside of a relationship, my anxiety, issues disappeared. And the only time I experienced more anxiety again was when I was chronically stressed out. So what I wanted to tackle in this was a lot of, things that are stressful that we may not realize are stressful, or they may not be impacting us and contributing to our anxiety. So first thing out of the gate is social media. Yeah, you wouldn't think so, but social media in studies has been shown to increase levels of anxiety and depression. So sorry to burst your bubble if you love being on social media, but that's what it does. And part of that reasoning is, the highlight reel. You're seeing a lot of great things going on in other people's lives. And if you're in a place where stuff's not so great in your life, that can make you feel bad. Or you can feel judgmental of yourself and or your relationship. When your best friend posts something that their significant other did for them, well, why doesn't my boyfriend, girlfriend do that for me? Or when you're seeing other people on there that are in, great shape or better shape than you, or your out of shape friend is now a couple months later, suddenly they're looking great. And now you're looking at yourself going like, well, gosh, I don't look like that. There's a lot about social media that just contributes to our stress and our negative self-image, low self-esteem. The lack in our lives is really kind of illustrated there. And I mean, I've experienced myself. So if you're going to use social media, it's important that you tailor it to your needs. Do you need to see what's going on with all these people's lives? I mean, we end up with hundreds or thousands of friends and followers on there, and most of them are people we don't even know, or acquaintances, an old coworker you barely spoke to from 2 jobs ago, but they're still around in your social media, maybe liking things, or they post stuff and you see it, and it's like, do you need to be exposed to that? Do you need to get into arguments with people, in the comments section of like a news article? Does that do anything to improve the quality of your life? Because you're not changing their mind. So tailoring your social media to just meeting your needs and maybe seeing just what's going on with your immediate friends and social circle is really a healthier way to go about it. I mean, I mostly use it to post my artwork. Well, you can't really see the paintings, but I do work as an artist, and I mostly go on there just to post my artwork. I'll maybe take a little look at something, but I don't really pay too much attention to what's going on with everybody else, because I'm just more focused on who's here and present in my life. And that doesn't mean to say I don't try to keep in touch with other people and old friends, but that's just where my focus is at. Another big one is quality of your relationships, and that's your family, your friends, and your romantic partner. If these people are just bringing negativity, toxicity to your relationship with them, then it's important that you either look to reduce the time you spend with them or cut them out of your life entirely. And I mean, I've gone through this personally with some friends and with family members where just my needs aren't getting met interacting with them, or all they bring is negativity, or maybe they're not getting anywhere with their life. And so it's important to me that I really try to foster relationships with people that are moving forward, because that's where I want to be going. I want to keep moving forward. I don't want to get stuck. And sometimes people get stuck. So taking stock of these relationships, do you hang out with a certain friend that makes you feel bad? Do they make comments to you that bring you down more often than bring you up? Or do you have family members that are very judgmental and stuff? I mean, I'm the oldest of all my siblings. And yeah, there are times when I look at what they're doing and, I try not to be judgmental, but there are times though where like there are people have other siblings that just are nothing but jerks to them. They just treat them poorly, and this is just how the relationship is. And oftentimes that older sibling or even a younger sibling or that person is a very toxic person. They're not healthy. Maybe they're an alcoholic or something, and all they do is treat you bad. So why continue to try to foster a relationship with that person? Unless they're going to change, you are just going to get more of the same. So again, take stock of your relationships. What are these people bringing to your life? Because if it's only the negativity, that's just going to stress you out. It's going to increase your anxiety. But then there's also the impact of mirror neurons. There's a reason they say you're the sum of the 5 people you hang around with the most. Because the people you are closest to and you hang out with frequently, you start to almost exchange, character traits and mannerisms and things. You'll find like with your best friends or the friends you hang out with a lot, you guys might do or say things that, you might do or say something that your other friend started doing or was originally doing, but now you kind of do it too. You'll see it a lot in, your relationship with like your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, when you guys have been together for a number of years or a period of time, but because you're together so often, you will start to pick up on traits and mannerisms. I mean, I catch myself doing things that my ex used to do or say, and I'm just like, I find myself doing it, and then I'll remember like, oh yeah, like it'll remind me of her, and then the emotional baggage that comes with that. But but just you find yourself doing stuff and you don't realize, you may not realize you're doing it, initially until you are. But this can also happen with negative characteristics, negative traits. So if someone's very negative and pessimistic and cynical and tears you down all the time, that can start to bring you down, or you could start to be more like that person. If they're going nowhere with their lives, or they always have an excuse for something, why they're not getting ahead, you may start to emulate this behavior. So it's important to look at the quality of your relationships and decide, do I want to be like this person? And then, try to make relationships with people that are more like what you want to be, because that's what's going to help you become more like that person. I mean, that's why the importance of like getting a mentor or something. If you're, trying to be, get into a certain career field or something, it's important to have a mentor, someone who's already there that can help guide you. But, so yeah, take stock of your relationships. Another one, binge watching TV. Now, we've all been there, we've all done it. But studies have shown binge watching TV contributes to anxiety, depression, feelings of loneliness. And in part of that's because, you're spending, oftentimes it's hours sitting idly, probably snacking, and just watching your favorite show. And that's all great in itself and enjoyable. I mean, I watch, a couple shows at a time myself, but I will often do something I probably shouldn't, but sort of multitask, where I like work on a piece of artwork while I'm just kind of idly paying attention to like the show. But yeah, what often you find is hours go by and all those things waiting on your to-do list to get done aren't getting done. And that just builds up stress because it's still there all those hours later. And then you find yourself going like, well, I don't have time to get all this done. And then you're more stressed out because you're pressured to get on it, even more now. And so that's really like where like a lot of the stress comes up from binge watching TV. Is oftentimes you have things to do, work projects, school projects, studying, cleaning up around the apartment, whatever it is. You're going to paint the bedroom or, gut out the garage, all those things that you're not getting to because you just spent 4 hours, binge watching a show that you could have watched later on. So, a good way to deal with that is, maybe knock something off your to-do list and then watch an episode. And then, take a pause after that. Get up, move around, maybe do something else on your to-do list, and then reward yourself with another episode. It's a much healthier way to go about, enjoying your Netflix and chill. Another big one? Obviously, work is a huge factor for stress. A lot of people are unhappy with their work lives. You might have issues with coworkers, or how much you're getting paid, or a boss or a supervisor that's just a jerk, or you're sure they just don't like you. And it can be incredibly stressful because, especially nowadays, work doesn't just stay at work. It often follows you home. Your coworkers are texting and hitting you up complaining about work, or your bosses are able to just reach out to you directly. It's no longer like back in the day where we had landlines, for telephones. Like, if you weren't home, well, then you didn't get the call. And it was a very different experience. Like, you just got up and went out, and if I missed a call, I missed a call. But then nowadays, you have a cell phone and a direct line of communication. So there's no excuse now, like, oh, I didn't get the message, I didn't get the call. No, it comes right to you. And with that, there is a stress or a pressure to answer and be available 24/7 to your job. And what's important is, like, you need to set boundaries for that. I'm available for my work hours when I'm at work. When I'm outside of work, unless it's like an emergency or something I screwed up with, like, don't contact me. Like, I don't want to be stressed out about something work related when I'm not at work. But unfortunately, that's what happens all too often these days, is work follows us home. And then you come home, and if you're stressed about work, you're often complaining about work to your spouse or significant other, and they don't want to hear about it. Like, no one wants to hear about how much you hate your job every single day. If it's that bad all the time, then you need to find a new job. You either need to address your issues at work or find a new job. Like, those are your options. That's all there is to it. Otherwise, if you're going to continue to suffer it out, then you need to change, and how you show up and how you relate to the issues at work, because it's just not healthy to continue to be in that negative state of mind about something all the time. So it's either you change, how you're showing up, or you change the circumstances by changing jobs or changing positions, what have you. Another big stressor, parenting is obviously one. I'm a single father, full-time single father. I don't have shared custody or anything. So having to not only deal with everything as the adult in the house, making sure everything's taken care of, bills are paid, etc. But I also have a whole other little human being who depends on me for her well-being, to make sure she's fed and taken care of and that her needs are met, and so with that is a level of stress, but it becomes more stressful if, depending on the quality of your relationship with your child. How do you show up in that relationship? How do they show up in that relationship? I'm fortunate enough, my child's, overall things are very good, and they've gotten a lot better too over the last few months. Just as far as like her mood and attitude and things at times. But there are kids that can be very, very difficult to deal with. And then sometimes it's not by any, purposeful act of their own. Sometimes kids are just hyperactive, and after a hard day at work, you don't want to come home and like deal with that. Believe me, like, I'm the oldest of 7, but then I'm also part of like 10 kids because I have like 3 half siblings. So but there's a lot of us. So like, I know what it is to, see my parents deal with a bunch of kids, running around and being crazy all the time and not always listening. It's very stressful on top of, what it is just to be stressful as an adult, and then all your own interpersonal relationships and things you have going on, but then dealing with children. So trying to show up differently there for them. I don't agree with the notion of like pacifying your kids with like technology, which is something you see all too much these days, where people just put a phone or an iPad or something in their hand and say, here, go do this. I mean, when I was growing up, I had video games, but then we also spent just as much time outside playing. And I mean, I'm guilty of it now. Like my daughter does not get enough time outside as I would like. And I mean, and that's 100% on me. So trying to change how you show up in those relationships, because it's better for your kids that they get more exercise and activity, and that'll help them improve on a physical and even mental level as well. I mean, there's a great book out there called Spark that talks about the benefits of exercise on improving your brain and learning and such. So with that in mind, though, as a parent, I'm not going to tell you how to be a parent, but I suggest looking into how to be a better parent. You know, there's tons of resources out there now, and there's no excuse for not educating yourself on how to show up and be a better parent for your children, and then showing them how to be, you know, better, or at least act in a way that's going to be less stressful for you. And now I know this is easier said than done. Again, I'm the oldest of 7. I know what it is for a bunch of us to be a little terrorist running around. And I know if you got things going on, that could be difficult. But parenting is certainly a major stressor, and tackling it, even to just some degree, to limit the stress on yourself, is still going to be beneficial. Another big one is clutter. Clutter is a huge thing. If you got a lot of clutter, you hoard, you just happen to have like a small place with a lot of things in it, or even a big place with a lot of things in it, or just your office or your bedroom, or things are messy or a bit of a wreck, deal with the clutter. Clutter creates stress, creates some mental stress, whether you recognize it or not. I mean, I'm really guilty of this. My office/studio space right behind this wall here gets kind of cluttered and messed up more often than I care to admit, and it certainly adds its level of stress. You know, I find if things get crazy in there because I'm not staying organized and putting things back, and you know, I'll break things out and shuffle stuff around, and sometimes I won't get it all put back into place. I'll find I want to go in there and do work less often because I don't want to go in there and face that issue. So it is, you know, clutter is definitely a thing. Take the time out to declutter. If you have stuff that's just been sitting around for a year or more, throw it out. Like, you don't need it. Donate it. Give it away to somebody. Have a yard sale. But get rid of the clutter. You know, get rid of all the stuff that you think you need. Like things, you know, they don't, after a time, like, you know, you know, whether it's nostalgia or just like the emotional attachment to it is no longer there. And you might find, like, why do I still have the collar of, like, you know, my pet that passed away 10 years ago kind of thing. I mean, something like that. Maybe it's a little more sentimental, but I'm just saying, like, there's things you're holding on to that if you're not using it, then you should probably lose it. And then another big one I've been guilty of and still hits me here and there is multitasking. Our brains are not designed to multitask. No matter what anybody says, you know, if they think they're a great multitasker, okay, good for them, but your brain is not designed for multitasking. We're meant to focus on one activity at a time. So if you're constantly juggling back and forth between different activities, there's a mental tax on your brain each time you make that shift. And then it takes, you know, a while. It's like 20 minutes or 25 minutes for your brain to fully re-engage with that previous activity. So if you're in the middle of studying and then you stop and take a moment out to look at, you know, Facebook or something, and then you burn 20 minutes on that, and then you flip back over and try to get back into your studying, well, now it's going to take you like another good 20 minutes or so to get really, you know, fully immersed and re-engaged in that studying. So that's why it's so important to focus on one thing at a time. And now you can see how constantly switching around back and forth has an energy tax. It takes its toll. But then also when you're trying to do two things at once, something I'm guilty of, that a habit I picked up over the years in my journey towards, you know, figuring out my anxiety, is I got really immersed in, like, watching and reading things online, you know, watching videos on YouTube and reading all kinds of articles and content online. But it became a problem when I would sit and just try to enjoy a video game, but I'd have my laptop open next to me and I'd be listening or trying to listen to something on YouTube. And what happens with that is I'm not fully engaged in either activity. I'm not fully learning this information that's important to me that I want to learn, and I'm not fully engaged in my video game that I want to play for enjoyment's sake. And instead, what all too often happens is because of the interactive nature of a video game, as I'm a little more engaged in that, so I'm not really hearing everything going on, in that video. Or I'll find myself, going back and forth, and that's extremely stressful and taxing on the mind. So if you're doing this a lot and all the time, you can see how all these different things are all adding up and adding to your stress. I mean, I realized when I was going through a period of chronic stress and engaging in just that activity, I realized, okay, I have to take stock of all my stressors, what's going on. I know this is stressful. I know that's stressful. I know this adds to it, clutter, multitasking. I need to stop doing these things. And when I stopped doing those things, within a day or two, the anxiety symptoms I was experiencing went away. And that's because I was finally giving my nervous system a chance to relax and calm back down. Because what we don't realize anymore is just how we've sort of engaged our nervous system, and you're almost past the feeling of fight or flight or just before that full-blown panic, but it's still just kind of like, it's like revving the engine, but instead of, revving it up high, RPMs, boom, 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 it's instead of hitting it like that, it's you just have that low, just have your foot on the pedal a bit, and you're just hovering around 3,000 or 4,000, just kind of holding it there, where it's not like the full roar of the engine, but you just got it hovering there. And because it's constantly hovering there, it's wearing on you. And then in those moments when it spikes up, you're not really coming back down to idle. It's just still hovering in there, running, and you're burning up gas. And that's what happens with your nervous system, is when you're constantly stressed out and you have all these stressors going on, you're constantly engaging, that fight or flight response. And over time, like, all your body can do is communicate with you through the symptoms of anxiety, through, the symptoms of stress, through the symptoms of, feeling burned out. And when you're starting to approach something like burnout, that's like a whole other level, where it starts to, it's stress, but at a dangerous level. That's chronic stress. And then now at a dangerous level where, you're going to feel even worse. You're going to feel run down. You're not going to feel like you're enjoying life. You might feel even more extreme anxiety symptoms, like, weird stuff like disassociation, where you don't feel attached to reality. I mean, I've experienced some wild symptoms and stuff over the years that, it's hard to imagine that it's not something more serious than just a worn out, tired nervous system that needs to be allowed to relax. And you need to engage in activities to help de-stress and bring better work-life balance, or more fun and positivity into your life. And so real quickly, I want to name off a couple of them. I don't want to make this video too long, but meditation's a big one to help combat stress and bring it down, calm you down. Studies show it actually makes physical changes in the brain. Most of the studies are around an 8-week period, and I think they do like a mindfulness-based stress reduction closer to like the 40 minutes a day range. But just to help you calm down and get back to to idle, just start with like 3 minutes, build up to 5, build up to 10 minutes, 10 minutes a day. I mean, you have that time. But I promise you, a 10-minute mindfulness meditation, whether it's through the Calm or Headspace app, a YouTube, meditation, or just listen to the sounds of rain and set a timer. I mean, it's night and day, like the difference you feel, especially if you do some point during the day when you're stressed, and then at nighttime before bed, makes you feel really calm. So meditation, a big one. Exercise is a big one. It's not just great for your body, but great for your mind too. Our brains are designed for us to be moving and active. And there's a great book out there called Spark that talks about the benefit of exercise on cognition. But exercise in itself is just great to help alleviate stress, burn up that nervous energy. But if you're not in great shape, start with walking. Walking's fantastic. I take walks every night. It's great to just get outside, out of your house, and just go for like a nice long walk, especially if you have troubling issues on your mind, or things on your mind, or stuff you're upset about. It's better to process it while walking, because we're meant to be engaged in movement, than to be sitting around at home or enclosed at home and and trying to process it. I promise, try it out. If you're going through something difficult, get outside and take a walk while you're thinking about it and processing it, and you'll find it's a lot easier to deal with. Other than that, socializing, get out, hang out with friends and family, as long as it's positive vibes is what you want in these interactions. Get out and go do something fun with your friends and family. You'll find, we're social creatures. We're meant to be engaged with other people in person. That's why our bodies respond to touch. It releases oxytocin. That's why when you engage in sex with your romantic partner, oxytocin's released. It's a bonding hormone. It's part of what helps bond you guys together. Is that proximity, the physical touch. It's important. Spending time out in nature. No matter how we want to look at it, we're still animals at our core, and we evolved to exist out there in the wild. In Japan, they have a practice called forest bathing, where it's an actual form of therapy that you go walking out through trails in the forest to, as a form of therapy. And just, adding on top of that, there's compounds in the trees called phytocyns that if you breathe them in, they actually stimulate your body's natural killer cells. Again, studies on it, research is out there, check it out. But it's fascinating to know that our bodies and so many different aspects of our body and minds are meant to engage and interact with the natural world. But we're no longer a part of that, existing inside homes and apartments and in buildings, and we spend more time in these artificial enclosures than we do out in the wilds that we evolved to live in. So time out in nature, there's nothing more soothing or relaxing and beneficial than just some relaxing time out in nature. Go for a hike, take a trip somewhere. Chances are, no matter where you're at, you can get out to somewhere in nature, whether it's just a field or, you got the forest out here in Las Vegas. We got, great like hiking areas out here at Red Rock, or go to Mount Charleston to be around a lot of trees and things. So get out in nature. Hobbies are another great one. Find some hobbies. I think it's important that everybody has a creative outlet for themselves, especially me as an artist, but I also have, things like, I have model kits and stuff I like to do. It's just important that you have a creative outlet or a hobby of some kind where it's just something that you do for you, that you enjoy, so you just get that benefits and that the feel good feeling of, making or doing something, and it's for you, and the satisfaction of that. There's nothing more satisfying than creating something, going like, I made that. It's great. Those are, I think that's it. So those are the big ones. I want to wrap this up. Address your stress. Get out a piece of paper, write down your stressors. Everything going on in your life, anything big or small you can think of as a stressor, write it down, and then figure out a way to either eliminate it or reduce its impact on your life. And then on the flip side of that, add more things into your life that help combat stress and bring more positive vibes in. And that's everything I just listed there at the end. Meditation, exercise, time out in nature, socializing with friends, family, go do novel activities, go check out things you've never done before, or eat, try new foods, things like that. Do those things. And I promise the quality of your life and your anxiety levels will improve tremendously. So with that said, you're worth it. Take the time out. Love yourself. With that said, we're going to get to the root of it. You can do this.